When I discovered my parents handed our family company to my sister, I stopped pouring 80-hour weeks into it without pay. A week later, my father called, frantic about losing our top client. I simply told him to let Sarah deal with it. She's the chosen one, isn't she? Hey Reddit, before we get into it, I've noticed the channel could use a boost. Subscribing is the best way to help us out. It's fast, free, and it really strengthens this awesome community. Let's jump into the story. I've always believed in earning my keep. When I joined the family business fresh out of university, I didn't expect any favors. My parents had built a mid-sized consulting agency from scratch, and I respected their hustle. I was eager to carry their vision forward. For almost a decade, I worked grueling 80-hour weeks, not because they demanded it, but because I wanted to show I could lead, innovate, and expand what they'd created. For the first 5 years, I didn't take a paycheck. Every cent I made went back into the business. I lived in a cramped studio apartment while my friends bought houses and fancy cars. I thought the sacrifice was worth it. My younger sister, Sarah, chose a different route. She was always more refined: private schools, high-end fashion, exotic vacations. She majored in communications, flirted with influencer gigs, and hopped between jobs, never sticking around long. My parents always said she was exploring her purpose. I figured she might eventually join the business, but she never showed interest, until recently. A few months ago, Sarah started popping up at the office. At first, she was just tweaking our social media. Then she began attending key meetings, tossing out bold ideas without grasping how the company worked. She had no experience in consulting and no ties to our long-term clients, yet my parents treated her like a visionary. I kept my cool. I held back when she claimed credit for a detailed plan I'd spent weeks crafting. I stayed quiet when she misnamed a major client's CEO during a pitch, and my dad laughed it off. I told myself it was just sibling jealousy and tried to brush it aside. Then came the family dinner that changed everything. It was a weekend evening at my parents' house. Me, Sarah, our parents, and a few of their industry buddies. Midway through dessert, Dad raised his glass and announced they'd chosen who would take over the company when they retired. I smiled, assuming they were just hyping Sarah up. Then he said they were giving the company to Sarah, not as a co-owner or partner, but as the sole leader. She'd be CEO, effective immediately. I nearly choked on my drink. I stared, waiting for a joke that never came. Mom just smiled, glowing like they were passing down a priceless heirloom and I should be thrilled. I stood up, pulse racing, and asked if they were serious. Dad sighed and said Sarah had the spark to take the company forward. He called me too focused on details, too stuck in the old ways. They valued my hard work, he said, but the business needed new energy. I let out a sharp, empty laugh. I reminded him I'd worked 80-hour weeks for free, built client trust, overhauled our finances, and secured our 2 biggest accounts. And now I was being tossed aside like an unpaid assistant. Sarah had the nerve to smirk and say, "Don't make a scene, it's just business." That night I cleared out my office. I sent a brief email to the team, thanking them for their support, and I left. No fuss, no warning, just gone. A week later, my phone rang. It was Dad, sounding desperate. Our biggest client, a tech giant accounting for nearly 40% of our revenue, was on the verge of walking away. Sarah had tried to rework their contract without understanding their needs, pushing a flashy rebrand they didn't want. Dad pleaded with me to step in just this once to save the relationship. He was almost in tears. I took a deep breath and said, "Let Sarah fix it. She's the leader, right?" Then I hung up. The aftermath was swift. Word spread through industry contacts. Key staff were ready to quit. Clients were doubting the company's direction, and Sarah was floundering. My parents were in chaos. Meanwhile, I was finally getting full night's sleep. I thought that was the end of it, let their empire crumble. But then something shifted. A few days after Dad's call, I got a LinkedIn message from the CEO of that tech client. He respected my choice to step away, but said he missed collaborating with me. He asked if I'd consider freelance consulting, even short-term, and said he'd trust me with his business again, no strings attached. I met him for coffee. Then another client reached out. Then another. Within a month, I'd started my own small firm with a few former colleagues who'd quietly left the family business. We kept it lean, no office, just laptops and late-night planning sessions at my dining table. The clients, they came with us, not everyone, but enough. Enough that I was earning more in a month than I had in a year at my parents' company. Enough that people started noticing. Then Sarah called. I didn't pick up. Then Mom emailed asking for a family dinner, just the 3 of us. She said things hadn't gone as planned and they wanted to talk. I haven't responded yet. Part of me is curious about what they'll say, but another part is livid they're only reaching out now that they're in trouble. And the worst part, Sarah's been posting cryptic social media quotes about disloyalty and family betrayals, as if I took something from her. I didn't take anything, I just stopped giving everything away. Now I'm wondering, do I meet them and hear out their apology or pitch, or do I keep forging ahead without looking back? Because I've learned one thing: loyalty without respect is just manipulation, and I'm done being used. I ended up agreeing to the dinner, not out of longing or forgiveness, but because I wanted to look them in the eyes and see if they felt any remorse. I wanted to know if they still thought their choice was just business, or if they realized they'd bet the company on a pipe dream and lost. We met at their favorite upscale restaurant, where we used to celebrate company wins, new clients, big contracts, promotions. Walking in felt strange, knowing I was no longer part of that world. But oddly, I wasn't anxious. I felt liberated. They were already seated when I arrived. Dad stood up awkwardly, unsure whether to embrace me. He didn't. Mom forced a smile. Sarah, thankfully, wasn't there. Small talk fizzled quickly and Dad cleared his throat. "We messed up," he said. I just looked at him, no reaction, waiting. He went on, saying they thought Sarah's leadership would elevate the company, but it had been a disaster. Clients were leaving, staff turnover was skyrocketing, and Sarah was overwhelmed. Mom chimed in, "We should have valued you more. We didn't see how much you held it all together." Then came their offer. They wanted me back, not as a worker, but as CEO with full control. They'd transfer ownership, rebrand under my leadership, and clear out any obstacles. Sarah would be gone, no debate. It was everything I'd worked for, everything I'd earned, but something in me stirred. "Why now?" I asked. "Because the revenue's gone, because your star player burned it all down?" Dad winced. "Because we were wrong," he said. "And you're the only one who can fix it." For a moment, I felt that old tug, the love for the company, its legacy, the team I'd mentored. The part of me that still craved their approval. But that part had died the day they gave my life's work to someone who hadn't earned it. "I have my own company now," I said evenly. "One I built, one where no one doubts my place." Mom's face fell. "We thought you'd want it back," she said. "You didn't think that when you gave it away," I replied. "They offered to buy my firm, merge it with theirs, rebuild together." I said no, plain and simple. Then I asked the question that had haunted me since that dinner. "Why her?" They went quiet. Finally, Dad said, "She was struggling. We thought giving her a purpose would help." I laughed, not out of anger, but disbelief. "So you threw away the daughter who was succeeding to prop up the one who wasn't?" They had no answer. I stood, dropped my napkin, and said I hoped they'd figure out their mess, but I wouldn't be part of it. Not again. Walking out, I felt lighter than I had in years. That was 6 months ago. Since then, my firm has grown threefold. We've got a downtown office, a client wait list, and investors reaching out to us. My name's gaining traction in the industry, not because of my parents, but despite them. Sarah, she's no longer CEO. Word is she tried to blame a junior manager for the chaos and stormed out after a heated board meeting. My parents are struggling to keep the company afloat, but most of the top clients and talent are gone. A few of those employees now work for me. I don't talk to my family anymore, not out of hatred, but because they made their choice and I made mine. People often mistake legacy for loyalty, thinking you must protect something just because it's tied to family, even if it drains you. But I've learned that blood doesn't make a business plan, and family doesn't mean you owe them everything. I didn't destroy their bridge. They lit it on fire when they pushed me away. All I did was build a stronger one, and now I don't need theirs at all.